I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create lives of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. We have an awesome guest today, one of my good friends, Anthony Benedettini. Love saying it. It's fun to say. Nice ring to it. He broke into tech sales, not just at any company, but at a top enterprise company, Zoominfo. And he didn't just break in, he broke in within a month. And he didn't just get promoted, he got promoted within a year and he doubled his income. If you guys want to break into tech sales and launch your career and do it in style, this conversation's for you. Make sure to stay for the whole conversation, take notes, and like this video and share it with more people who could benefit from the message. With that, let's dive into it. Anthony, thank you so much for being here. How's your day been so far?
It's been pretty good. Honestly, I feel like I'm on kind of cruise control right now because the end of the month, way past my quota. And so I'm kind of taking this week as a reset week, just kind of get organized for the end of the month here. So I've just been hanging out, chilling, nice and easy, but can't complain. It's a good day.
So glad we caught you in cruise control time so we could have you on and to share your insights. Now, where are you at percentage-wise for your attainment? They walk us through your maybe the KPIs that are in front of you and where you're at.
Yeah, so my KPIs are on completed meetings. So my job, I work on the customer side of the business and I set meetings for our renewals. So I work in the mid-market and enterprise sector and go ahead and just make sure we're supporting those renewals that are usually within 180 days from the renewal date. So I'm setting up various types of meetings within that range. So per month, my standard quota is going to be 48 completed meetings. And my heater or my bonus is going to be at about 60 completed meetings. So I just get an additional bonus on top of that. Right now I'm sitting at like 65 and we'll probably end the month around 85.
Let's go. Gets me pumped up. So we're going to talk about how you found out about tech sales, your journey into tech sales, your experience in the interview process. We're going to talk about being in the role. Initially, you told me you were an inbound SDR, you got promoted to outbound. And we're going to get people fired up. But before that, one thing I've noticed is top tech sellers set stretch goals. And you've certainly done that. On your LinkedIn profile, it says future centenarian.
Yeah.
That's a stretch goal right there, baby. Walk us through that, because I know you're all about health and wellness. So how did that goal come to you? And honestly, like how do you get there?
Yeah, so I actually gave a talk to my company about this topic. And it's just a centenarian is someone who is 100 years old. So my great grandma was 100 years old and health and wellness was my background. She unfortunately passed now, but she lived a very healthy life until she was about 98 and then she got dementia. And so I kind of dissected what made her successful because this was before all of the biohacking technology and sauna and cold plunge and all that stuff. So, it's just starts with the fundamentals that you can do every day, like being active, going for walks, choosing high quality foods, and surrounding yourself, but with an awesome community and just having really great relationships throughout your life. So it's something that I strive to. I would love to be 100 years old. I think that just the long-term mindset itself will help you accomplish way more, because basically at the end of that talk, the main thing that I'm getting at is that if the average life expectancy is about 76 years old, if you can shoot 10 years past that, you can accomplish pretty much anything in 10 years. So, you look at your life in decade chunks. Let's say I just turned 30. So like I have a decade chunk right now. There's always this pressure in society, like do things right now, start this business now, go do this thing now. And it's like, you've got certain amounts of blocks to get that done. And in 10 years, if you commit to one thing, you're going to have some level of success if you stick with it for 10 years. So it's just pretty cool that you can extend your lifespan just by making sure that you're aiming at a higher number. And it applies to sales too. Like I make sure I shoot way past my bonuses. That's my personal standard, my personal goal. I'll never have to worry about actually hitting quota. That's going to be exceeded every single month. But my standard is almost double that. So it's really like just having that stretch goal helps a lot along the way.
What a great look into the mindset of a high performer in sales and honestly in life. You're saying set stretch goals beyond what's expected, whether it's number of meetings set, pipeline generated, or revenue closed, and the same for how long you want to live. And you really put in perspective that 10 years is a period in which we can really produce transformative results in business and in our careers. But I also think too, how much meaning can we create in that time, whether it's watching like someone grow up in our family or developing, all the experiences we can have with our loved ones. And it seems like part of the formula to living to 100 plus and being a centenarian is meaningful relationships, right? Like how would you weigh meaningful relationships versus the other ingredients?
Yeah, I mean, relationships are everything. So the way I see like energy in your life, there's three main types of energy. It's going to be your health, your finances, or your wealth, and then your relationships in your life. So you can have two, but if one's off, it's going to significantly impact the others. So you can have all the money in the world, and I've talked to people that are very successful. And if they don't have relationships in their life, they will feel inadequate. They will feel like they just want what someone else has. So, relationships are not only going to help you in business, but they're going to make you feel whole. Like they're going to make it so you don't need those extra things. You can do experiences with the people in your life and cultivate a really meaningful impact, whether you guys are creating together or really just living life and being happy. And when you're happy and you're satisfied, you're providing your best energy into the world. And therefore, everyone else gets to experience that. And you have a chance of lifting others up.
Cheers to all of us putting out our best energy as much as possible, as consistently as possible, and elevating each other. And you had mentioned to me that you spent 10 years in the wellness space, and you really believed and still believe that health is wealth. But then you also described wealth isn't too bad at the same time. So could you walk through that? We were talking about that. What's your thinking now on the wealth piece, and maybe how did tech sales like play into that?
Yeah, I mean, out of college, I was in a fraternity where all of my brothers went corporate finance. So just like everyone went the finance route. And I was like, that's just not for me right now. So I went into the health and wellness world, and I love the health and wellness world because it has a personal connection to me. I've lost a lot of family members through cancer and just kind of dove deep into that world. And for years, I just focused on like, if you can just control your health, everything's going to be okay. Like, because your health is your biggest asset at the end of the day. Carries into your business, carries into your life. Like you have all the money in the world again, but if you can't do the things that you want physically, like what's the point? So I thought that health was the main metric for years. And then I found myself at this crossroads that I just wasn't fully satisfied in my career growth. Like there was something there that like the money was pretty good, but I wasn't growing anymore. And I felt like I was stuck. And I felt like I was stuck in the health industry. And I already know the fundamentals. I don't need to learn anymore. A lot of it's rehashed information now. And I'm like, where do I go from here? Like I need to jump ship and go into a new industry where I can have more accelerated growth and really hit the financial goals that I want for myself, because you start to realize like, even if you are in really good shape and you're in good condition, your health is great, like money is always a limiting factor on like doing the experiences and doing the things that you want to do. So tech sales, I mean, I originally kind of got the idea from you and was like, oh, you were kind of my only friend that I knew in tech sales actively. I knew people that maybe worked in different departments in tech, but in terms of sales, you were it. So when I was applying for jobs, I applied for a lot of different jobs, but I always thought in the back of my head, like, I can do sales. I was going for product management because starting salary is very high for product managers. It goes really high up into the six figures. And I'm like, great, got my certification, spent a bunch of money on it, realized it was very competitive. So I wanted to crack into sales, move laterally into that position in the future. But I just found so much success here that I'll probably end up doing the sales side for at least another few years. And it's allowed me to make more than my previous jobs, any of my previous jobs in the health and wellness space. And it's just getting started. Like it's only going up and up. I'm not seeing a plateau or a stagnation at any point in the near future.
So knowing you as one of my friends and seeing you on a consistent basis when you were in Austin, I was like, this guy's so talented, and it's like you blew the roof off the ceiling in terms of your earning potential. You're on a path now where some people do make $1 million a year. I'm not saying I have, but it's cool to know that it's possible if you're in the right environment at the right company. And now you're at a top enterprise company, Zoominfo. I think we were talking one off, but have you seen, like, what have you seen to be like the earning potential at a company like Zoominfo? Have you talked to any of the top AEs or?
Totally. I mean, top AEs in our company are still making 500K plus $1 million.
Wow.
So AEs, like, and I'm on like the customer side of the business, so I talk to more account managers. You could still make a ton of money as an account manager, and I think it's just to get to the enterprise space, you really have to have that experience. Like, it's a long climb to get there if you're going to enter on SMBP at the lowest segment and climb your way up. However, the money is massive. Like, you can grow an account. That's the kind of work that I love to do. I love to work with current customers, build relationships, and grow accounts. Whereas if you want to become an AE, you're searching mostly new business, handling full sales cycle, and getting them in the door so an account manager can then take over. And so the account manager potential, especially in the enterprise space, is pretty massive. I mean, we just heard of a deal the other day. Someone just closed a $3 million upsell. And so like $3 million, even if the commission is like 5%, is around 150K for that commission check.
It's amazing.
So pretty insane. Like, you close a few of those deals, you're way above the 500K mark. So just kind of dispelling the, like, where I came from a big entrepreneurial community. It's like the only way to make that kind of money is you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to start your own business. You have to do your own thing, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started seeing like $1 million earners as a W-2. And I'm like, there's another way. And it kind of opened my eyes to things. So that earning potential is fully there.
So you had a great perspective in our conversations on not having to take on like the risk of entrepreneurship to still access like an unbelievable upside to make as much as $1 million per year. And you described it almost as like there's a clear game you can play with different levels and that you can achieve in certain time periods. I just wanted to riff with you on this topic. Like, how did you think about that? Because you had a great perspective on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've worked for myself in the past. I've done my own thing, done my own consulting, done my own coaching. And I hit limits in them because either I wasn't fully into it. I wasn't at a point in my life where I felt like I was ready to give it my 100%. And there's a lot of risk involved. Like, it is a lot to take on. And if you're not adept at wearing many hats and making sure you're focusing on the parts of the business that need to scale and really committed to it as the business that you are going to focus on for the next 3 to 5 years foreseeably, then it's going to be very challenging. And I just realized that for myself, I operate better. And I worked for startups in the health and wellness industry all the time. And so I was kind of done with that structure of like having to wear many hats and having to figure it out and not knowing where the next step is. So I really was like, all you hear in that space is like, no, like, screw the system, screw corporate. But like, what corporate does is give you an opportunity to succeed. They give you very clear metrics and very clear, basically, guidelines to go and play in. And so I knew that if you gave me guidelines, I'm just going to go execute. It's like how I do my workouts now. Like, I just do group fitness classes because I've honestly been lifting since I was 15, but I just don't like programming my workouts anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'd rather just like have someone program and let me show up and just go freaking hard. And that's how it kind of is for a corporate job. Like, it's like you are given the tools, you're given what you need to do, and you can show up and you can work as hard or as little as you want. In my case, I just want to work really hard because I know I'm very confident that I can do very well.
And guys, I have to say, I've been at the same gym as Anthony. He's shredded. Let's go. Shredded and crushing it in tech sales. Let's go. But anyways, you mentioned you took a pay cut, by the way, which is, this is an important concept. I think humility goes a long way when we keep the long-term futures in mind, like being willing to take a pay cut for a bigger payday down the road. But I just wanted to get your thoughts, because didn't you have a conversation with Zoominfo and they're like, you're overqualified potentially, or like, what was that conversation? What was your thinking?
For sure. I mean, I was making almost the 6-figure mark in my last role. And it was a great salary, it was good. But I realized that like coming in here, I'm going to take 2 steps back, but I'm going to eventually take 5 steps forward. So, I took about almost a 50% pay cut. And that's what they said in the interview. They're like, why do you want to go in at the very entry level? Like, you have more experience than all of our SDRs. Like, why would you want to do that again? I'm like, confidently, like, I believe that I can make my way to the top and that I can do very well and that I see myself growing in this company. It's very clear to me. And so they're like, okay, fair enough. And sure enough, that is happening at a rapid rate. And it's because like I know the metrics in front of me and I'm able to just hit those and crush them at a rate where it's helping me out and it's also keeping me motivated to go to the next step, because in this corporate structure, there actually is a next step. It's not like my startup where I felt like I was doing really well, but there really wasn't a next step. It's just like, okay, good job. Just keep grinding on the day-to-day. Like you don't know when the next promotion is or when you can get to the next level or earn more. It's just kind of like you're on salary, you do the thing, that's it. It's for the team. All done.
So you doubled your income in a very short time, in under a year, as you got promoted from inbound SDR to outbound. Am I right on the titles, by the way? Like, I don't know the terminology within Zoominfo.
For sure. I'll make it clear too, so people just kind of understand what that means. Like as an inbound SDR, you are just fielding inbound leads. So could be I'm on the customer side of things. So it's when someone requests a feature or requests an upgrade or more information about something within the platform because they're already using it. Or it's when a current company, let's say it's like an Amazon, and someone from Amazon fills out a form on the website. Like Amazon's a customer, so it's going to go to us and we're going to field the leads. We're going to call them, we're going to qualify them, book them for the appropriate person, etc. When you get to outbound, you're basically have your targets. On my side, I have assigned pairings. And so my assigned mid-market and enterprise accounts that I am supporting the renewals for. If you're on a new business outbound, you are just generating your self-sourcing meetings for account executives to close. And if you're on like upsell on an outbound role, I just identifying upsell, and you're usually working within that first 6 months of an account cycle, as opposed to I'm working in the last 6 months. So inbound versus outbound is just inbound. You're going to get paid way less because if you think about it, you're splitting the money with marketing. Like company spends money on marketing, so you can just get leads. You're basically just like, thank you, I'm going to field it, go to the right spot. Outbound, there's no marketing required. And so you get to keep more of that commission and therefore you earn more.
And a key thing to recognize is that some of the best companies, there's a strong awareness in the market. It's a strong brand. So there is a need for inbound. And startups will likely, might have inbound as well. But for example, right now at my current startup, we don't have that. But it's interesting for folks out there to understand there are different types of SDR models and roles, including inbound. And it's interesting too that you prefer the path of working with current customers, nurturing and growing relationships, which is a very lucrative path. And then there's the hunter role, where I know some people, they just love the thrill of the hunt, right? But are you you're currently outbound, just to double confirm with but with current customers for renewals? I just want to clarify that one more time.
So I'm still technically cold calling people. It's more of a warm conversation because they're already a customer, but I'm still an outbound rep. So like I'm not getting leads. I'm digging into accounts, figuring out who's going to be the main point of contact, targeting that person, relentless follow up until they're on the calendar. But I am an outbound rep on the customer side of the business.
Okay. And you hit the magic word we all love is cold calling. I'm just curious to get some of your thoughts on how do you approach your cold calls in the context of your role? Like how might you prepare for it? What might it sound like? I'd love to dig into that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say mine are way more simple than you're going to find in an outbound new business role. I did this by design, by the way. Like I wanted to go the customer route because I knew that the inbound side on customer is more difficult, I would say, because you have to have a really good understanding of the product so you can identify upsell opportunities and solve the problem with the product. On the new business side, it's pretty much like, hey, what is Zoominfo? What does your business do? Let's set you up on a demo. It's pretty straightforward. You're having the same conversation, except on the outbound side, that's what I do now. I'm pretty much having the same conversation. Hey, I'm reaching out. Hey, this is Anthony from Zoominfo. I work on your account team. I work alongside your account manager, whatever way you want to frame it. But I'm just reaching out. I'm trying to schedule 10 to 15 minutes for us to, depending on how long it is away from the renewal, to either start the conversation on the renewal, check in, see how your usage is on the platform, see how we can fill the gaps and make sure you guys are fully supported, or just, hey, we need to have a conversation about the renewal. It's right around the corner. We just want to hear your feedback, what's working, what's not, and go over ways where you can maximize the rest of your plan and see what you guys need for the upcoming term.
Love it. It's super helpful to get an example of what the outbound script might sound like for a role where you're working with current customers. Because all the time I'm having people talk about the outbound, the hunting role when it's just net new to the company. So that was
Yeah,
really well put, and just ultimately making sure that they're taken care of, and you're addressing gaps and offering that true relationship and partnership, and being proactive to get ahead of things before the renewal comes around. Because I had a guest or like a different live stream, and we had someone in the comments, and they said they were talking about how to approach exactly what you described. So this would have been perfect for them. And I think an issue, tell me your thoughts, is some folks wait a little bit too long until the renewal date, right? And you haven't shown
for
any
sure.
relationship. You need to show a relationship proactively. You can't just assume, right?
Yeah, I'd say like the biggest churn risk factors are going to be when you're this happens a lot in like the SMB sector, just because there's so many accounts that's really hard to give people full support throughout the whole account cycle. So in mid-market enterprise, people are usually on top of it. There's more dedicated CSMs for those accounts to help solve problems throughout the life cycle. But yeah, you're getting like, I'm reaching out. My sweet spot is probably like 90 to 120 days till renewal. And I'm making sure we set those meetings and start having those conversations. And then like another strategy is going to be targeting probably like 6 months out and setting up more like check-in health calls,
Okay.
like with power users, with the main point of contacts, and saying like, hey, we'd love to connect. We just want to get a feeling for how it's working for you, what your strategy is, align to any upcoming goals that you might have, and just go over ways that we can best utilize the platform to help you hit your metrics, which you use us for.
One of my key takeaways is, again, just how important it is to be proactive in this scenario and not take for granted that you have a current customer. And one other question I have for you, and then we'll go to like your journey in to Zoominfo, because I do want to double click on that. It'll be helpful for the audience.
Yeah.
Is how shoot, wait a second. I lost my train of thought. It was, oh yeah. Got it. Back. How do you manage like these touch points? Are you using like reminders in your calendar? Are you using your CRM? Because I'm sure you have a lot to manage. How do you stay organized?
Yeah, so our tech stack on customer side, we use Salesforce. So everything's housed in Salesforce. We use a software called FrontSpin to make dials and to just see activity on those leads. I'm not using a CRM to track everything. Everything is stored in Salesforce. It's how I'm booking meetings. That's how I'm looking into accounts. We have Tableau within Salesforce where we can see more accurate reporting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so love that. Like that's more of like where my data is housed. But the way that I organize my flow and my pipeline is going to be actually in Google Chrome. I use tab groups at the top of my screen. And so I'm going to basically form tab groups for each account manager, or I have like a cooking tab, I call it, where it's like these people are like at the finish line, just need to push them through. I have like a reschedule tab. Essentially, I'm taking my accounts, I'm prospecting from a spreadsheet. Then basically these are opportunities that are given to me, maybe reports pulled from Salesforce, put into a spreadsheet. I'm then pulling up those accounts in Salesforce, doing the digging, loading the appropriate contacts into FrontSpin, and then I'm putting those contacts in the FrontSpin in the appropriate tab groups at the top. And that's where I'm just going to hammer on my outreach all day long. So basically that first part is just very important of like loading prospects in the FrontSpin. And then I'm just using Google Chrome to stay organized. And I'd say that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm successful in my role is just the organization, like making sure that no one ever slips by. Like if I'm targeting them, they are not going to be untargeted until they're on the calendar, or I start multi-threading like crazy and get a response from someone else. So that is kind of my organization system. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just utilizing Chrome. And then of course, I use Zoominfo to find additional contact information that I don't have. Most of it's housed in our CRM by this point because it's just two-way syncs. But, in case I need an additional mobile number or, an alternate contact that might have, we're trying to get in touch with someone new that came into the company, it's usually going to be in SalesOS.
Talk about a practical insight, something that the audience can apply today in terms of organization that actually has a big impact on success. I think in a lot of the conversations I've had where it's easy to stay high level and not get into the weeds of how to actually organize the day-to-day. So super insightful. The only other thing I wanted to double click into of what you just shared was the multi-threading piece. What does multi-threading mean to you, and what does that look like in the context of the types of personas you are reaching out to at Zoominfo?
Yeah, multi-threading is just looping in multiple people in the buying committee or the decision-making process. So in this case, if I see a main point of contact in Salesforce, there might be like, especially when you move to mid-market enterprise, there might be like 10 main point of contacts because they all are in different departments. They might handle something different. They might have different subscriptions. They might have like access to our Chorus product. One might be using our recruiting software. Either way, we're trying to make sure that if we're not getting a response from one person, I'm looping in another person or I'm reaching out to another person with pretty much the same thing. And at the very least, like when I start my outreach to accounts, I always, unless there's just one main point of contact on the account, I'm typically reaching out to 2 people or more. And that's because inevitably, when you reach out to 2 people with the same messaging, either one of them is going to talk to the other and be like, hey, they just reached out. They're trying to get time for the renewal. Like, can you book a time with them? Or they're going to tell me like, hey, actually Jim's in charge of that. Like, you should reach out to him. Or they're going to tell me, if they're the main point of contact, like actually a new VP just joined our company and they're going to be handling all renewal conversations. So I'll be included on the call, but I'm going to loop them in. We need to find time for all of us to meet. And so you're basically just taking other points of the people in the decision-making process and making sure you're outreaching to them to get the overall goal of the meeting or whatever you need to get done.
Multi-threading is the move, and we shouldn't be concerned like, oh, are they going to be annoyed if we're hitting up? They talk internally. No, it's a good thing. And they'll say, hey, like one of us, let's get back to Anthony, or they'll refer you to the right person. So that's a great, again, practical pro tip on how folks can, whether they're in a inbound or outbound role for current customers or outbound role for net new logos, how they can get the attention eventually of the right people at a target prospect.
And I'll touch on just one thing that's kind of a quick story on that.
Okay.
Because it happened recently. So we had an account. I work with account managers, and we have renewal specialists that just handle the renewal contract. I usually meet with clients in that 3-month renewal range. So I work with a renewal specialist, and she was trying to get a hold of the main point of contact for the renewal for 3 months. Nothing. Just kept ghosting. Like responded once and then just goes. So I tasked this guy up. I'm like reaching out almost every day. I'm calling. I'm emailing. I usually email every other day. I'm leaving voicemails. I'm hearing nothing. So the multi-threading is when I find someone else. My renewal specialist is like, hey, target this person. We've had correspondence in the past. Here's your LinkedIn. Like, go get her. So I give her a call and I'm like, hey, Mary, just trying to reach out. I'm trying to get a hold of Phil or whatever his name was. And we're trying to just get the renewal finalized. We just haven't heard anything back from him. Do you know, like, is he okay? Or like, is he traveling? Do you know anything about that? And she's like, oh, actually, yeah, he was traveling for a bit. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to message him right now and we'll get back. That guy ends up booking a time an hour later. And then it's the next day meeting. He literally signs within an hour and closes a 20K renewal. So
beautiful.
Something like that, where you just reach out to someone else and you're like, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of this person. Like, I'm not like, they could be traveling. I just want to see what's going on. Maybe I'm missing something. Just want to see if you have any insight. Like, people are not annoyed. You're just trying to get something done like they would do for their business. And they're more than happy to help you out.
Beautiful perspective. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So let's talk about your journey fast tracking in a tech sales, getting into Zoominfo in a month. And let's be real. You have a great background in entrepreneurship, even partnerships roles in the health and wellness space. So you were in a way overqualified and you humbled yourself. But let's start with square one of, how many companies were you applying to? Like, where did you start?
Yeah. So I probably applied to, this is like, or very early on last year, I probably applied to like 50 plus companies. And if you look at some people when they apply to hundreds, but I take a little bit more of a tactical approach. Like, I wrote down companies I actually wanted to work for. I was looking for roles that would be more fulfilling and like a mix of like, I want to do this and my experience will set me up for a better positioning in that role. Like I will have a higher chance. So applied to all those various industries, kind of various positionings in marketing and sales and across the board. And Zoominfo just happened to be one of them. And so when I applied, I got a reply back by the end of the week. And they're like, hey, love your experience. Would love to set up a screening call. So we set up a screening call, got on the phone with the recruiter, 20-minute call, set up the first interview. Did the interview, set up another one like a week later. Did the second one. Then after that, they set up a final one. And then they're like, hey, we'll get you a decision by the end of the weekend. Ended up being like, 4 or 5 days later. But anyways, they gave me the offer letter then. And yeah, I had to think on it because, like I said, it was a pretty big pay cut. And so I'm like, is this going to be what I want to do? I had another opportunity where I could make a higher base, and maybe like the on target earnings were about 150K. So I'm like, this is going to be like higher pay. But at the end of the day, I would have to travel like 30 plus minutes. I would drive 30 plus minutes a day. And it was pretty ambiguous. And the owner was like someone like, all right, he would be training me, but I don't know if this is going to work in like the industry. This is the industry that I want to be in. So ultimately, I just ended up taking this offer. I'm like, I think it's great growth potential. I'm just going to go all in. And the office was right around the corner. I actually just moved to downtown Vancouver so I could just walk to the office. So it worked out perfectly. So I spend no time commuting. I walk 5 minutes to my work.
What a dream, just to be able to walk 5 minutes to work. And I do find that a lot of people want to work remote, but there's something about being in an office setting that is nice. Like you can get to know your teammates, you can innovate a bit, encourage each other. You can hear some chatter on the sales floor, which is always motivating.
Absolutely.
And it's just more of a designated focus environment. So
I will tell you too, I was fully remote before this.
Okay.
So I was fully remote.
Let's talk about the remote versus in office. And then I have to go back to your interview process to ask about some of the
100%.
questions you were asked and things, but remote versus in office, your experience.
Yeah. So I've worked in person before in startups where I was like in the office every day. And then I worked kind of hybrid at a role. And then I worked fully remote. And when I was fully remote, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom, but I always felt like I was never connected to my team. Like I liked the people on my team, but we had maybe like 1 or 2 events we did in person a year, like for conferences and stuff like that brought us together. But like, I never really had that in person, like learning or like get stuff done. It's like, you just got to depend on Slack and them getting back to you. And that's super frustrating at times. However, here, this was a hybrid opportunity. So we started off a few days a week. They ended up doing 4 days, but then when you move to Outbound, you get back to 3 days. So I go in 3 days a week. But I really enjoyed, at first it was really intimidating going in because I hadn't been into a corporate office with that many people around. I was like, wow, this is kind of a lot. And I'm an extrovert and I was still like, whoa, like I haven't been in this environment before. So you're kind of like figuring it out because no one knows you there, trying to get your voice, trying to like feel the room and just see how you're going to fit in. And over time, yeah, you do sit next to people. Like I got to sit next to people, hear their conversations. They would just show me exactly what they're doing live right next to me. I don't have to ping them on Slack and wait and schedule another call. It's so direct and like the learning and improvement is so fast when you're in person that it was definitely worth it. Now, like I love working at home. Don't get me wrong. So, when I go into the office, I do my brief time in the office. It's usually just to make my calls and like I will work as much as possible that I can at home. But I like my space now. However, I love everyone that I work with and I love going into the office because it's just a great connection. You're like, especially in today's day and age where everything's digital, it feels really good to have like in-person camaraderie and just people that you can shoot the shit with, for lack of a better term, at work. It makes it way more enjoyable.
I found that working for a top company like Zoominfo, or in my case, Oracle, which is similar, right? Zoominfo and Oracle have some of the largest SDR organizations and best sales organizations in the nation and the world, really.
Yep.
It's like going to a top university. One, you do get the branding, right? You get the logo. Now you always be ex Zoominfo, ex Oracle for me, ex Google. And there's power in that. And it makes you marketable in your career. It's easier to make friends. Like I remember in college, I could go to the cafeteria and talk to people, and you're going through classes and you have things in common. And correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, but it's like you're going through a shared experience at Zoominfo with these other sellers. And it's not guaranteed you're gonna have a bunch of friends, but you're in an environment with probably like-minded people, and you get to amazing training, and particularly sales to me is like the ultimate education by learning through doing, the school of hard knocks and failing forward. And so feel free to also give feedback on your experience and if that resonates with you, because I'm kind of projecting my experience. And I'm also curious, like the learning and development in the training at Zoominfo, if you got any of that. But what's your overall thoughts on kind of that metaphor of comparing like a Zoominfo or Oracle to going to like a strong university?
I think it's accurate. I mean, you're connecting with like great minds, and in this SDR org, like you're not everyone's great immediately. So, at first it just kind of feels like initially, I think when we first talked, it's like I equate it to like being a fraternity, like pledging. You're kind of just you're doing the grind. Like it is just straight grind work. It's kind of like hell at certain times. You're like, oh my God, like it's just all day. And that's the point of it. It's like, it's to see if you're competent enough to do the job, to stick with it, to actually produce value for the business. And it's tough, but the people that make it through are going to reap very good rewards and see good career growth. So you're seeing people live, like some people just fail out. Some people like you connect with instantly. Some people like you probably won't talk too much, but they're around and maybe they go different paths in the business. But you will always like connect with people just like you did at school, with like-minded people that you're like, I like their energy. You can see that in person. You probably wouldn't have like approached someone and maybe asked them a question if everything was just on Slack. You just see their picture and you're like, oh, maybe I heard someone told me to connect with you, or like I heard about you or whatever. And you reach out in Slack and set up a video call. But in person, it's like you can just ask the person right there. You can go up. It is really good, and it's a good energy in the office. And our company especially is notoriously young. So most of the people at our company are 25 to 35. And it was crazy because I'm on a sales floor with like someone who could be in their 40s, someone who's in their 30s. And then like, one of my friends is 21. And it's like, dude, I was like, I wish I could be you right now, because I wish I got into this when I was 21. I'd be set. So I was like, you're interacting with a diverse group of people, and that makes for great conversation. It's exciting and great. Just like you wouldn't approach a diverse set of people typically out. You're just going to gravitate towards the people who are most like you. But, you find common ground, even if people are different within those environments.
So well put. You added a little more nuance to the overall thought. And everyone talks about the financial upside of tech sales, and I think as well about the friendship upside, because it has brought a lot of great friends into my life. You're not gonna be friends with everyone, but when you find the right ones that are like-minded, and a lot of people in tech sales are stretching themselves, right, to be centenarians or to, achieve big things. It's fun to be around those types of people. Now, what type of learning and development or train, maybe the better term is like training and development, has been provided from Zoominfo? I'm assuming, it's a huge org. You might get some good support. Could you speak to that?
Totally. Yeah. I think the learning and development is top class. Like for the first month, you're doing a lot of just onboarding. So for a couple of weeks, you're learning like everything Zoominfo. So what's the company? What does it stand for? Processes, things like that. And then in terms of like trainer selling and like teaching you, how to be good on the phones, how to do your job. We use something called Lessonly. Now it's seismic learning, but it's something where it's like we had video lessons available to kind of walk us through processes. It was very clear. It's very easy to walk through. And, with any organization, I think the training here is very good. However, what makes the difference between like a top performer or not is going to be just going out and sourcing more of your learning from people that are top performers. Like they're not going to book a meeting with every top performer for you. Like you're going to have to go set those calls yourself and be like, hey, I want to pick your brain. I want to see what you're doing. I want to borrow some of the things that you're doing. And the cool thing about what we do as well is that we sell Chorus. Chorus is just like Gong, if you've ever heard it. It's conversational intelligence. And you're going to be able to listen to people's calls, see the transcripts, get the key points, the takeaways, all of that. So I could just queue up the people that are crushing it and being like, oh, wow, I can just hear their conversations, listen to what they're doing. Like, how are they opening up the call? how are they maneuvering their words so that someone jumps on a meeting. Like, it's really nice to have that tool internally. We sell it, and like that makes me able to sell even more because I'm able to communicate the value of that to other customers. It's pretty great. So I'd say like that was a massive resource in the learning and development. But the main difference I see between like startups and where I am now is I've had better managers and leaders here than anywhere I've worked in my entire life. Like, the management and the leaders are on point, there to help you succeed. And that is their job. And it's hard to get that sometimes when you're a startup and your manager might actually just be responsible for like a whole set of things. And their main priority is not like managing their team. It's like just a higher level than you report to, but they're there to like make sure you're just kind of doing your job, not to like actually coach you and train you, at least from my experience.
So there's some great ammunition for any of the audience out there who wants to get into Zoominfo for why Zoominfo, right? Great management and coaching and support, great training and development, and having access to a tool like Chorus, which that's like very unique, I think, to Zoominfo. Now, there'll be other companies like Gong that have a tool like that where you might have it internally where you can listen to top performers' calls. That is nuts. So you don't even technically have to meet with them. You could just access that data and learn from the best and just take notes. Like, that is an incredible insight and opportunity. And the other thing is, I like that you said that, well, I don't know. Have you reached out to top performers to like have networking conversations?
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's a huge insight, man. Like, the way to fast track your success. We don't have to be creative and reinvent the wheel. Like, steal, the best artists steal, right? So what did it look like your messaging, basically, to reach out to these people to get them to open up to maybe like mentor you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hitting them up on Slack and basically asking like, "Hey, my name's Anthony. I'm either on your team or like I'm on, similar side of the business. I just see that you're doing really well and would love to connect. If you had 10 minutes, would love to see like if I could borrow some strategies from you, because clearly what you're doing is working, and I respect that, and would love to just get to know you and kind of how you approach this." And usually when I enter those conversations too, like, I'm not just being like, "Okay, what do you do? Like, give me your templates, give me your talk tracks." I'm genuinely curious on where they want to go. It's like one of the main questions I ask everyone I connect with at my company is like, what were you doing before this? And like, where do you see yourself in this company? Like, where do you want to go? Do you want to climb up the ladder? Do you want to get into a closing role? Do you want to go to management? Do you want to go laterally? Do you want to go learning development? Do you want to go into a completely different department? Like, I want to understand where people are going, because usually in tech sales, especially as an SDR, it's a stepping stone, and it doesn't have to be a direct stepping stone into an AE or an AM. It can be a stepping stone to like, I'm in the company, I really like working with our products, I want to go CSM. Like, I really want to help people solve problems with the product. And that's just really interesting to me, because like, your skills as a top performer, your skills here in your organization will carry over, but you still won't just like carry over and instantly be a top performer. You're still going to have to connect with someone who's been doing it for a while, who has like the nuance and who has the momentum and everything on their side that they've accumulated, so that you can borrow some of that. And now in my position, I train other SDRs like on when they come into the renewal side. And it's great because like, I understand I can identify where the gaps are, but like, I welcome it. And most people that are doing well, it's not depending on what segment of a business you're in, like on the customer side, it's very collaborative. Like, especially on our side, we don't have the same accounts to go after. So we're not competing for the same leads. So it's like, it takes away the competition and like I gotta be number one, no one else can be number one. It's like, hey, I want everyone to succeed, because if everyone's making good money and if everyone's happy, that's a success, not only for the team, but for the business and for you personally.
What a great insight into a winning mentality. You're a team player, and just like, I mean, sales is just like sports, and business just like sports. It's when the team wins, everyone rises together. Great insights in how to reach out to mentors who you can model after to accelerate your success. You reached out in a way that was flattering, not like over the top, but acknowledging, like, I can tell you've been successful and I respect that. You lowered the commitment barrier. You asked for 10 minutes. I'm sure the conversation, when you connect, it extends to more. And you approach the conversation from a place of generosity. You want to know, where are they trying to go? And I can tell by asking that, you want to see, I'm assuming, how you can support them in getting there. And I can tell, we'll talk about this in terms of where you're going next, but there is a leader in you. You're already mentoring people. And I imagine we had talked that you're going to ride this path to leadership. And the beauty of the SDR role in tech sales is you lower the barrier to entry to an amazing industry, amazing companies like Zoominfo. And then if you deliver and focus, you build your network, you learn about the company from the inside, you build transferable sales skills that can support you in any role you want to be in. And then you can flexibly move to other roles. As you described, customer success, you could eventually you might want to get into product. I don't know if you still do, given you're crushing in sales. You can.
I think it's in my future, but it's like, once again, I'll know when that point is. Just like entrepreneurship. Like, I have a feeling maybe when I'm in my 40s or 50s, I'm going to have a proper go at it, but it's just not right now. And that's fine. And like, I'll know when that point is.
And I think both of us we are patient and we play the long game. And that is such an important quality. And it's success, like just when it comes to monster success, because any overnight success, like really it was the sum of just like learning and gaining more responsibility and strategic moves over time. So the point is the flexibility of the SDR role, the path, it can open up multiple paths, which is so cool. And so let's go back though. We have to hit on the interview process for Zoominfo. You breezed through it, but for those that are looking to break in at Zoominfo or other top companies, I want to talk about some of the questions you were asked. I took notes. I have them myself if you need me to refresh your memory, but do you remember offhand like some of the core questions that kind of stuck in your mind that you were asked, like maybe behavioral questions, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. They're going to ask you a lot of situational questions because when they hire, like we're hiring right now. So even after this interview, please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn.
Oh man.
But like
what an
when
opportunity.
we're hiring, the messaging is always like no experience required. And it's true because they just want to see how you handle certain situations. Like you don't have to come from my background. I had a leg up in quotation marks for like my experience, but like at the end of the day, they're looking for a specific set of like, how are you going to handle a customer in a certain situation? How are you going to handle like, what is something that you failed at and then you overcame or you did different, you approach it differently the next time? You know, what is a situation where you worked in tandem as a team and helped achieve a goal? Like they're going to ask you a lot of those questions. And I've had that kind of experience across the board with interviews. They're going to ask you to walk through your experience. I love walking someone through my experience as opposed to them like asking me every step of my journey. It just feels better when I can take the lead and be like, hey, let me just walk you through.
Show me. Sorry to interrupt you, but you got me excited because that is a foundational question. Like, how do you frame your experience? I'm curious, like, do you guide them like and focus on certain aspects? Like I'd love to hear just high level how you might approach that.
Yeah, I'm gonna like with each job that I applied for, you know, I have relevant experience. So I might spend more time on more relevant experience when I'm citing those things. So I might take them back for like this. I might take them back to the beginning of my journey, like selling Cutco knives. Like sold Cutco knives, had a 90% closing right there. It was my first foray into sales, learned a ton. But you know, more recently, as I got an adult, worked for startup, I was head of customer experience. Then I went into marketing and partnership roles at this company, testing various advertising for podcast channels, selling $40,000 PEMF machines. Like I'm going to touch on like sales, marketing, relevant experience.
You're hitting numbers, kind of like revenue impact, close rates. Not everyone has that. And that doesn't mean it should stop you, right? But as much as you can, I say, speak the language of business outcomes and you're putting numbers on the table there. So
absolutely. And like stuff that you maybe had to, you know, go through in those roles, like, all right, it was, or what you were responsible for, or what you did in those roles. But, you know, you're not taking them on a novel journey. It's just more so like, let me paint the picture for you. And so I can walk you through what I think is going to be most relevant to what you're looking for. And they're going to then ask questions on that. So I think it's like, it's best, obviously don't take way too long on that period because they're really looking for how you respond to questions and moving forward from there, especially when no experience is required, also in quotation marks. Like, they're not just looking at your experience. Whether I've worked alongside many baristas at Starbucks and retail workers at a mall, like, and that still crush it in sales. And it's like, you know what? You just have to have the will and like a desire to grow at the end of it. But the interview process is a lot of those situational questions. And it was with a lot of different people too. So it wasn't the same person conducting my interview. I had it with like 2 sales managers to start. They will pass you on to the next round. Then it was like 3 different people. And then it was, again, maybe you go up to senior managers, and then you're at that process, and then they're passing you through. So you'll meet with a lot of people.
You also got the question, like, if you're in a bar and had to talk about Zoominfo or pitch it, like, what would you say? What was the actual question? And could you just, at least at a high level, speak to how you handled that one? And I think you even said like you just kept it simple. But yeah, tell us about that one.
I kind of winged it because I knew, after looking at the website, like, I knew that Zoominfo sold tools to help your business grow. So in essence, it's like someone, if they ask you what you do, like, I don't have to go into the details of everything I do on my day-to-day as a SDR at Zoominfo, but I might be like, yeah, I help support these accounts or yada, yada. So they're like, yeah, how would you describe Zoominfo if someone asked you what you did in a bar? I was like, oh yeah, I would probably say like, I'm in software and, we sell a solution that helps businesses grow. It's like something super simple. And they were like, all right, like, it's simple enough. You get it. The main lesson to take away from this is like, if you're interviewing, do a little bit of homework on like who you're actually applying for, so you can align your interests, your desires, and your experience to what the company actually offers. So it's going to make it easier for you. And they're gonna be like, oh, this guy's actually more of a culture fit, or he gets what's going on here. We're not going to have to train him as much. Like, he'll get it. And I think that's more important.
I think an insight there is that less is more when it comes to pitching, and you demonstrated executive presence. Executives need you to get to the point quickly, and it's a mistake to get too into the technical weeds and details. And so they want to see if they could put you in front of an executive. And ultimately, why does Zoominfo's tools and all that stuff matter? It's because you literally help businesses grow. It's like if you ask me what is a computer mouse, like tell me about it. What is it? Like, what does it do? And I could try and describe like all the little parts and how it all works together. Or I could say, oh, it's what you use to book your next vacation for your family in Costa Rica, where you're going to have an amazing time. So it's like the same thing as like, it's about growth. And I have to say, like, when I had gotten my offer from Google Cloud and when I was at Oracle, and I was really excited about it, but they hit a hiring freeze and I had like a delay, and I decided to apply for a role with Salesforce, and I was referred from a CIO, right? And he referred me to the head of all sales for one of their business units, and I came in cocky. They asked me, the hiring manager, what is cloud computing to an executive? And I'd been in cloud, and I gave such a long answer, detailed answer of like infrastructure, service, SaaS, et cetera. And I didn't get the job because I overdid it. What a lesson, guys. And I was for it like a field sales role, but always stay humble and always keep it simple, stupid KISS, right?
Absolutely.
So I lost out on an opportunity, having moved up from SDR to AE, et cetera, because I overdid it. The moment we think we're too smart or try and be too smart, that can be risky. Like, obviously it's good to show your credibility and intentionality too, but it's a balance. So
that real quick too, like, that really applies on the phone. Like, there's so many people, especially in my side of the business on renewals, that try to just say way too much on the phone. And it's like, every time I will tell them, like, this is a very simple call. Hey, I'm reaching out. We're trying to book a time to talk about the renewal. If you were to say anything else, like, that's all you have to say, and they're going to respond, and then you can take the conversation from there.
Anthony, that's what I noticed about your scripting, which is more just it's a flow, and you're showing up authentically and you're keeping it simple. And something that got in the way of my success early on in my career, and I still have to be mindful of, is over-explain or over-speaking. In fact, when I'm pursuing, multi-million-dollar deals, sometimes you just have to say, this is the price. And yeah, here's a discount, but this is the price. And you just pause and you don't over-explain, like, hey, I know it might be expensive, or I know there might be and you just, keeping it simple is really important. So thanks for that example, the cold calling. So otherwise, next thing you know, the customer on the cold call is hanging up on you, and you probably had an opportunity to help them, and you're fully capable, but sometimes we get in our own way. So I wanted to hit on, because we only have 5 minutes. Is it okay if we did go over? Is that okay?
For sure.
Okay, I'll still try and keep us on time, but I just want to hit on some other things that made you successful in the interview process. And I have some notes on it, but we talked about some of the questions, but I'm sure you brought some questions to the table. Maybe you had a really, a clear why. But what are some of the other nuggets in terms of how you approach and successfully executed your interview process? Because I want to get the audience thinking about other things other than just like, answer these questions really well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helped me is just showing a desire to grow within the company. They don't want someone who's just going to like hang on, barely get in, cling to like barely attainment, and then get let go. Like I made it clear that, listen, reason why I'm taking a pay cut, if you're not in that position, I get it. But you're saying that, like, let's just say you're at a typical 9 to 5, like, let's say you're a cashier. You're saying like, I'm in this position. I want to be at a higher standard for myself. I want to grow. And I've recognized that this place, and I've heard success stories I've seen on LinkedIn or whatever, that people grow here, and I want to be a part of that. I think that this could change my life, my career, whatever it may be. And you're showing a dedication to growth. You're not saying like, oh, I'll give it a shot. It's like, listen, I'm going to grow. I'm going to stay committed here because I believe that I can grow, and I've seen or heard success stories of people doing it. So I want to be a part of that, and I will do whatever it takes to make it succeed. So like, sell yourself a little bit, show yourself that you want to grow, and make it clear to them that you are going to be in it for the long haul, because turnover is real. It happens all the time. And the last thing you want to do is just like have someone come in, go through all the training, waste all the resources, and then out the door again. So people want to see just a commitment. So I'd say that's one. And then in terms of like asking questions, I usually ask about either the role or successful or traits of people that have been successful. And I'm just trying to get a feel for, I'm also even trying to feel for the culture. Like, what's it like being in the office? What's it like? And once again, I'm asking about them. Like, what were you doing before this? Kind of tell me a little bit about your story real quick, just so I see. And like one of the interviewers was like, actually, this is my like 4th job right now. I've changed position 4 times in the company in 2 years. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's like that I was like, wow, that's crazy, because like it shows that you can move laterally in the company. Like it shows that if it's not a fit, they're not just going to boot you. If you have a desire to grow, or maybe you're doing well, like you can move laterally and change. And I think that's really cool. So once again, I'm taking interest in what they do, and just trying to show that, listen, I'm interested, I want to be here, and asking the questions appropriately.
I noticed the theme with your success, whether it's breaking in or being successful in the role, and it's shifting your focus off yourself and on others, and staying curious. And speaking of curious, my puppy just jumped up. I don't know if you saw her, but you're dropping gold, and she's like, she wanted to really soak it up. She wants to break into tech sales like your dad and Uncle Anthony. So, gosh, we're having fun here, baby. But on a more serious note, no. So on a serious note, actually, it's a grind as an SDR. You got to put in work. It's not glorious, but it's the tuition we pay for increasing levels of freedom and impact eventually. You had told me one-off in conversation that a strong why is very important if you're going to make it through. Can you please speak to that point and maybe talk about what your why has been?
Yeah, really big, because there was multiple times where I wanted to quit. And you kind of have to take that step back and be like, why am I doing this? It's going to be a temporary pain for long-term success. And, when it gets monotonous, or when lead flow is low, or when you're just having a bad week and everyone's no-showing you, or everything's just going to shit, you have to realize that like, this is just one step and you're going to get knocked down. This is sales. It's not going to be flawless. Not everyone's going to say yes. In fact, you're going to get way more no's than you are yeses. And you are going to have to just stay persistent and keep following up. And like, just like you're going to follow up with your prospects, you have to follow up on your why, like staying committed to it. And so my why was really, why do I want to have this role, one, I want to feel fulfilled in my career. And I realized fulfilled for me was not being in a role where I'm like, oh, I'm super passionate about health. Like I love food, right? But I don't need to work in the food industry to feel satisfied about my career. What I realized for me is growth. Like I need to see, I love video games. Like I need to see I'm winning. I need to see some feedback like I am growing. And this was a place to do it. So I'm like, I'm here for growth. I'm going to get to the next level. And I'm here so that I can live the lifestyle that I truly want. And for me, it's not a lavish lifestyle. I still lived a really good lifestyle, even on a very low base salary. But it's more so like I want to put money away and save for my future. I want to start accumulating. I'm 30 years old. I want to start accumulating that wealth for my future family. Like I'm looking into what I want in the future. And you have to realize that that starts now. And like, it's not going to come overnight. And you're not just going to like jump in from a 50K base salary and then jump to 6 figures the next month. Like it's going to take time. But if you really think about it, that's why the thing that's helped me is that 100-year mindset, because like really like a couple months to promotion. Let's say you got held, I got held back from a promotion once because we went on a hiring freeze and we couldn't backfill positions. So they were like holding promotions. And I got so frustrated because I built myself up to moving that promotion for that month that I was like crushed. My soul was crushed. And I'm like, it's 1 month. Like, who cares? Yeah, I don't get a big commission check next month, whatever. But like, look at it in terms of your overall journey. And like when you get to the next level, it unlocks, especially as an SDR, it unlocks a whole new scope of pay. And so, you know, you're in the fish tank, you're getting fed, it's easy, it's small food. When they release you out into the wild, you're like, now I get to feast. It's fun. So it's always just realizing like the next step is there, because I've had to step back from outbound now. I've had to go back and like lead inbound huddles of when morale is low. It's like, it is a motivational talk of like, why do you do this? And why do you do this is like, you don't do it so you can keep making inbound pay and like, you know, grind your gears the rest of your life. You do this because you want to get somewhere, you want to provide for your family, or you want to have a better lifestyle, whatever that is. And this is just a stepping stone. And so like, you have to really make sure that your life outside of work is grounded and you're doing the things that feed you outside of work. Like you can't get that stressed about this. If you let it kill you, it will slowly creep in and it will destroy you, and it's not fun. So you have to make sure like outside of work, you have your grounding practices, you have the things that make you happy, your relationships, your health, etc. But, you know, sticking to that why is like, I found it here. I always heard that term, more important than any other professional endeavor I've had in my life.
That was like an inspiring tech sales TED talk. You had me on the edge of my seat, and you got me pumped up, because mindset really is everything. And Tech Job Tina, thanks for showing up and for the comment. Love that name. She said, Anthony is going to go so far in this industry. Perfect mindset. He's got the blueprint down. Great job. I love it. And thanks to all the folks who've shown up. We got 6 people now. We've had, you know, ebbing and flowing. And thanks to the people that are going to watch this, that floats out into the YouTube sea. And honestly, we could have this be the mic drop and the end of the conversation. I did want to ask you about success in the inbound and outbound roles.
Yeah.
Like, are you okay with that? I mean, that was,
100%.
I mean, that would have been a great tie to it, but like, let's be real. Like, we've got a live audience and you bring so much value. So just real quick to wrap up, what's made you successful in inbound, some of the keys to outbound success, and then your vision for leadership, and then we'll tie a bow on it. So I think you talked about organization already and your systems with Chrome and different things. You had mentioned the past product knowledge was important, and I think being a CSM, maybe you riff on that point, and any other points around being successful in your first role.
Yeah, so success for me comes down to one, organization, like making sure you are organized, making sure you have a system for yourself that you can show up to every day and put energy in, and you know it's going to reap rewards for yourself. Like I've gotten to a point on Outbound where I've created a system for myself. I know that if I do certain activities, it's going to reap the rewards, and I'm going to reap exponential returns on a lot of those. So creating that system, organization, huge. Product knowledge, I'd say, is number 2. Like if working for a company, the more you know about a product, and it doesn't come back to because you can explain more and going back to like the keeping it simple. It's not that. It's so that you can solve problems more effectively. Because if I know the breadth of all the solutions that we carry, and someone comes to me and I ask them about the go-to-market strategy and they're explaining something, I'm not just going to recommend the quickest solution I have or like the thing that we most recommend. I'm going to see what's actually going to be the best fit and where we can tie in and mention some other things that might be super relevant and helpful to them. And so like there has been sometimes, back to the CSM thing, I knew so much about the product and I knew a lot about the questions that were being asked because I've worked in customer service before. So I've had to collect the most asked questions. And so one of them, for instance, was like, people as admins on our software just didn't know how to tap into their bulk credits. So I learned how to do that. I learned how to do it as an admin. So when people call and they have that question, most SDRs would be like, hey, no problem. We're going to connect you to a customer success manager. The issue with that is that there might not be one available for a week. So now you're just sitting idle for a week, not using the platform. So that's a bad customer experience. So I learned how to do it. I would walk people live on the phone. And then whatever I had to pitch, whatever I had to say, they're like, thank you so much for showing me. And 9 times out of 10, they would book a meeting because they knew that I was competent and I'm going to guide them and lead them to the place they need to be in our product journey. So product knowledge, number 2. I'd say the third is going to be your health and wellness, like how you stay grounded outside of work. Like I go for walks. I make sure I get movement in. I make sure I'm feeding my body appropriately, but like sales at the end of the day is energy. And during those grind periods, it's a grind. And so it's really easy if you're not taking care of yourself to get burnt out. You will accumulate stress really fast. Everything's going to compound. And what's going to happen is you're going to feel more stressed than you actually are. And that's not good. And that's going to help you. Like if you get that down, you'll be able to stay resilient. You'll be able to stay attached to your why. You're going to be able to power through things. But those things on inbound, it was a lot of organization, product knowledge. On outbound, it's that organization, routine, and consistency, and like relentless follow-up. Like I make sure that I'm following up. And I'd say that success too, and your promotion, wanted to touch on like the way I set up those calls with top performers. You should also be setting those calls with upper leadership in your company. So I did that often. I was setting up calls with other managers. I was setting up calls with the outbound manager of the team that I wanted to go on. I was setting up calls with his senior manager, and I was setting up calls with her director. So I was setting up calls as an SDR with different people in upper leadership so I can understand the parts of the business. Hey, I'm Anthony. I just want to introduce myself. I want to go towards this part of the business. And, whatever manager told me you'd be great to connect with. So I wanted to just like get to know you for a little bit and, see what you do in your role. Once again, being curious about what they do, how they got there, their story, and where they want to go as well. And that got me to promotion. It gets me on, like, it sets yourself up because if you go apply for that leadership position, if you go apply for that next position, people know your name. And like, unfortunately, it's not always just like, oh, you do really well and you get the ticket. It's actually like, who knows you and how well do you fit into the culture and are a team player? Because especially in leadership, you're going to have to be coaching other people. You're going to have to be connecting in the dots and you have to be cross collaborating between departments. So you're like, people need to see that you're ready to handle that and can take those calls with other people and do it confidently and respectfully.
This interview is aging like a fine wine. It's like getting better and better, and we're almost done, but just you're dropping bombs. And that was the same for me when I got promoted from SDR to AE at Oracle, and that was inside AE. And that Google Cloud, I got promoted from inside AE to field sales AE. It was from what you described, reaching out proactively to leaders in managing the people above me in the role that I was going for. And thank you for sharing a specific example of how to message those folks and how to focus the conversation. And when it comes down to it, someone could have performance on par with you, even better than you, but assuming you hit your numbers, right? You need to hit your numbers. It's table stakes, but they might even have better performance, but you get the role because they know your name, you were proactive, and they like you. People buy from and hire people they like. And, hiring is a purchasing decision in my mind, One other thing on your success in outbound, you had mentioned to me you did play a numbers game. You exceeded expectations on emails. You left a lot of voicemails. Just wanted to polish up that point on outbound success and
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on your, like kind of the behaviors and actions you took.
Totally. So especially on the customer side for renewals, your success is directly correlated with the amount of emails you send. So I'm typically the one who sends the most amount of emails on the team, and I leave the most amount of voicemails. So where people just they hang up, I'm going to leave a voicemail. I leave it every other day or just whenever I send an email. So let's say, I email Friday. My workflow too is part of this, where I email everyone that I've loaded up into my pipeline in the morning. I'm usually work East Coast hours, so I'm up at the crack of dawn, 5 a.m. And I am emailing for the first couple of hours of my day. I'm turning on music, turning off Slack, and just
What music?
Man, I listen to a lot of house music. So
Hey,
yeah, I'm listening to like my playlist, or I make my own mixes. I've DJed for 10 years, so that's a whole nother thing. But like, I keep myself in flow.
The Dos Equis guy of SDRing, most interesting SDR out there.
Absolutely. It's in a previous life.
I love that. You can make it fun. Make it suck less with some house music or whatever music you like.
Whatever you enjoy, just like do something that's going to be like you're doing this activity, but focus on that one activity, right? Like I'm sending emails in that blog. Then I call on top of those emails later on in the day, because I can go from one of our daily activity metrics is going to be dials. Right. So I can go from 0 dials to 40 in 1 hour because I've already emailed everyone I need to. And I just have those prospects sitting in a row, and I'm just ripping through them and voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. And the voicemail is super important because nowadays, like if I see a missed call, whatever, it's a missed call, I'm not going to call that person back. If I don't have the number in my phone, I'm not going to call them back. And most people will not call you back. There's very few people that will just be like, oh, I see a missed call, I'm going to call them back. If you leave a voicemail, I'm always going to check my voicemails because it'll tell me I have new voicemails. Some people get a million, but like anytime I leave a voicemail and an email, I pretty much like clockwork, either that day or another day that week, am going to get a time just booked through my Chili Piper, because it's going to be something where like I'm sending an email, you see it in your inbox, and I'm referencing the email subject line that I sent in my voicemail. So, hey, Joe, just sent you an email. This is Anthony from Zoominfo. I work on your account team. We're just reaching out to schedule some time to go over the upcoming renewal. I just sent you an email this morning called Attention Upcoming Renewal, or whatever subject I use that day. It's got some availability there. All you have to do is click a time that works for you, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks. Done. Like, they don't need to call me back. I don't need anything else. I just need them to book a time. And then I will make sure I will do the calendar management follow-up to make sure they're on there, complete and serviced from there on out.
You kept it simple with the voicemail, strong tone, professional, not over talking or blabbering, and clear call to action. And you made it easy for them to take the next step through the Calendly. So you're like reducing the level of effort really needed to get to that next step. So
give them self-serve, like let them do it, because the more work that they have to do, and the more like, hey, when are you available? Like, I don't ever put like, great, looking to schedule a meeting. When do you have 15 minutes? No, I'm going to give you options. I'm going to put our direct calendar link there, so you can just click the time that works and it's done. Like, I hate going back and forth in email. I don't think anyone enjoys it, especially if you have a million things to do as a VP or a director. Like, you don't want to spend more time coordinating. So it's just like, make it easy for them. And that's good service. That's a good experience. And like at the core of what you do, you should just be looking to provide a good experience.
Speaking of VPs or directors, I mean, I see you as a leader, and I think we talked about you going down that path. So I just wanted to walk through your vision for the future. Like, where do you see yourself? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'd love to know, like, where are you going next on this path?
Yeah. So I see myself first step is going to be getting into management. I would love to manage an SDR outbound team. I love what I do now. I love the renewal side. I think it's massively important, especially as our customer base grows. Renewals is huge. It's massive. Current customer growth and just retention is a massive goal for any business that has expanded so much on the new business front. So I love it. And I also used to do in a previous job, I was head of retention for a startup. So as one of my responsibilities, wearing startup multiple hats. So I love that you can influence retention by just a few points, and it is millions and millions of dollars in the door. So reducing churn by just a little bit adds up to a lot at the end of the day. So I love that side of the business. So that's step one. Step two is going to be see how that goes. And ideally, I would go up to a director position, but I'm also keeping it open. This is going to be my first time as like an official manager in that role in the sector. So I'm going to see how it actually plays out. If I enjoy it, I love leadership activities. I love doing it right now, but is it going to be a match for me, or do I want to go to a different department, maybe lead a different team? And so it's going to be up to me at that point to decide where to go. But ideally, I would love to, I want to be with Zoominfo for at least 3 to 5 years. And I can see myself getting to a director title, or at least a senior manager title, and taking on more responsibilities. Because what I envision myself doing in the future, and this is kind of in the product management side, is like, I love working on systems and the efficiency side, to be like, okay, how do we, one, I like the individual coaching. How do we improve people, make them better? And I love like identifying problems and solving. And two, how do we drive efficiency through everyone, through systems, implementation, learning development, and make sure we're actually adding to the business goals? Because like as an IC, you just care about your number. And when you step into leadership, you're caring about, you also have your number, once again, that you're responsible for. But as you go up, you're going to be responsible for larger business goals and metrics that are going to take a little bit more than just like coaching people. It's going to be a lot more like design and project work to actually get things and materials needed, and how to pitch and allocate resources to get what you need to done in the business. And that's not only like what I can envision myself doing, but that's the skills I want to build for my future. Because like I said, I don't think entrepreneurship's out of the question for me in the future. And I know that I want to build the skills so that I can be an effective leader no matter where I am in my professional journey.
It's very helpful to see someone with a clear vision. You've thought through the steps, but you also hold it loosely and balance that out with an openness over time. Because this level of intentionality is what hiring managers want to see. I mean, that just, it's like blaring lights. Like, this person is competent and means business. And it definitely inspires me. And I'm so excited for the day when you come on as a director and we have a whole nother conversation and we look back at this original conversation and say, man, like, that was incredible. And look how far that we've come. So yeah. I'm so encouraged by your journey into tech sales. I'm sure this audience is as well, and the path that you've forged so far and the vision you have for the future. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. We currently have 7 people live. And again, that number has gone up and down. And thank you to the people who watch this in the future as this floats out into the YouTube sea. Anthony, any other final calls to action before we tie a bow on the conversation?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, first of all, thank you for listening. Second of all, thank you, Chris, because I'm, extremely grateful for you just introducing the idea of tech sales to me. I think it is a vehicle in which you can really get to wherever you want to in your professional career and stepping stone. You don't have to be passionate about software to join. And I'd say call to action is add me on LinkedIn. My name's here, Anthony Benedettini. Love to connect, love to hear other stories, like more than happy to hop on calls with people. And yeah, I just love helping people out, and it's like really impacted my life. So if I can help other people get into that and to help change their lives too, that would make me feel really good. So don't hesitate to reach out, and thanks for having me on.
I'm so grateful to call you a friend and very inspired by your journey, man. And thank you for pushing me to be better and pushing this whole audience to be better. And guys, what a unique opportunity that you can reach out to Anthony. And, he has open roles on his team. And if anything, though, you just, you can learn from him. And he's a manager and leader in the making. So someone you're going to want to know. So thank you for your openness to give people the opportunity to reach out to you. I encourage you guys to take advantage of that opportunity. Guys, to your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one. Anthony, you the man.
Cheers.
Cheers.